We're getting closer to control structures, and that's where all programming fun really begins. There is only one little piece of a puzzle missing before we can get into that. Let's talk about the concept of operators. With the word operator in programming, we refer to something very simple, something that most of us are familiar with since school times. For instance, mathematical operators, which can be addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. Before moving forward, let's get the terminology down. First term I'm going to introduce is the term operand. Operand is something that we apply an operator to. Let's look at an example. 1 plus 1. In this case, plus is an operator, and ones are operands since we are applying plus to them. Next term is a binary operator. Binary operators are the ones that are applied to two operands. Same as in the previous example, plus in this case is a binary operator since it is applied to two ones. Next term is a unary operator. And as you may have guessed, this is an operator that is applied to a single operand. An example of that could be an increment operator. This is a new concept for us, so let's look at an example. I'm going to declare a variable, call it num, and it will be equal to 1. And I'm going to increment it by 1. This piece here is an increment unary operator. I'm going to alert num, and let's see what the result of that operation is. Refresh. It is 2. So there you go, that is your increment operator. JavaScript supports all common mathematical operators: addition, subtraction, division, multiplication, and exponentiation. There is one more that you may not be familiar with. It's called the division remainder operator. It's easier to understand with an example. It looks like this. I'm going to declare a variable, call it num, and I will assign a value to it, which is a remainder from the division of 5 divided by 2. Let's see what the result of that operation is. Hit save, go back, refresh. It is 1. What this does, it returns a whole part, which is a remainder from an integer division of 5 divided by 2. Let's see an example of exponentiation. I'm going to say num 2 to the power of 3, and I'm going to alert num. The result of that operation is 8, which is expected. All other math operators are pretty straightforward. Let's see a few examples. Alert 1 plus 1. Alert 2 minus 1. Alert 3 times 2. Let's see what the result of those operations is. 2, 1, 6. Basic stuff. Let's look into some special abilities of some operators. The plus operator. Normally, plus operator is used with numbers. However, in JavaScript, it can be applied to strings as well. With strings, it will perform an operation called concatenation. Let's look at an example. I'm going to alert John, and I'll leave a space here, plus Doe. This is the output, John Doe, as an entire whole string. Concatenation is basically an addition of strings in programming. It will take one string and attach it to another one. Another application of a plus operator is a number conversion. You are already familiar with the number function that performs a number conversion of a number string. Plus operator is basically capable of exactly the same operation. If I were to say alert type of, we are already familiar with this operator. It will return the type of a parameter we pass it. And I'm going to say plus 1, 2, 3, or just basic set of numbers. Save, and let's refresh, see what the result of that is. It's a number. However, here we had a string. There you go, plus operator does a number conversion for you. Let's take another look at increment and decrement operators. We have already briefly touched on that. Let's see a couple examples. I'm going to declare a variable, call it num again, what will be equal to 5, and I'm going to say num minus minus. This is a decrement operator. It will reduce a value of this variable by 1. So if I were to alert this, the result of this operation should be 4, and it is. In JavaScript, we differentiate between the prefix and postfix forms of increment and decrement operator. It is best explained with an example. I'm going to keep this first line as is. It will be num equal 5. And I'm going to alert this right away. However, I'm going to alert an incremented value of num over here. I'm going to say alert num plus plus. And let's see what the result of this is. It is still 5. That's a little weird. However, in JavaScript, that is expected. What this will do, it will increment the value of num. However, it will return the unchanged value of num. And that is just how the postfix form of the increment operator works. If I were to change this to a prefix form, and prefix form is simply when we put double plus sign before the variable name. I'm going to save and refresh. It is 6. There you go. So that is your difference. Prefix form will increment the value of that variable and return the incremented value. Postfix form will increment the value of a variable. However, it will return an original value of that variable. This is very important to keep in mind when we get to control structures. Let's talk about comparison operators. And examples could be greater than, less than, greater than or equal, less than or equal, or equal. The result of an operation where we apply comparison operators is a Boolean value. Comparison operators can be applied to numbers as well as to strings. Let's see a couple of examples. I'm going to alert 2 is less than 3. Refresh. That is a true statement. 2 indeed is less than 3. If I were to flip it and I say 2 is greater than 3, save and refresh, it is false, which is expected to. In the case when we apply comparison operators to numbers, the result will be pretty logical and predictable. 2 will be less than 3, 5 will be greater than 4, and so on. However, in the case of strings, JavaScript does it in a little bit different way. What it does is an alphabetical comparison. Let's see an example. I'm going to compare John versus Jake. Let's see what the result of that operation is. That is true. Let's look a little bit closer at what is going to happen here. JavaScript will loop over both strings letter by letter, and it will compare each letter one by one. It will compare J and J, which are equal, and then O will be greater than A. Looping will stop there since O is farther in the alphabetical order than A, and John will be greater than Jake. This will be a true statement again. Let's look at another example. Let's compare John with Jonathan. Let's see what the result of this operation is. Go back, refresh. It is false. So what is going to happen here? JavaScript will start the same process. It will start letter by letter comparison, but then over here it will run out of letters. And then since the second word has more letters, it will be greater than the first word. That will not always apply. It will not look for a word with more letters in it. However, in this case, since all letters before the end of the string were equal, the second word wins. The second word will be greater than the first word. If I were to flip the switch, just to confirm this is true, John is less than Jonathan. Refresh. That is true. There is an important aspect about the equal operator. It is very important to know that it will try to convert its operands to the same type. Let's look at an example. Alert 5 equals 5. Let's see what the result of that statement is. It is true. 5 is equal 5. However, in most programming languages, this would not be the case since these are two different data types. It's very important to remember this because in many cases, this may cause an unpredictable behavior in programming. For such case, JavaScript also has a triple equal sign operator. This is also an is equal operator. However, it will not try to do the type conversion as the double equal sign operator. It will maintain the types and it will do the comparison that way. So let's see what the result of an operation here is. Refresh. It is false. I would recommend that you always use triple equal sign operator to avoid an unpredictable situations. JavaScript is notorious for its caveats in comparing values, and that's why I really encourage you to experiment with it yourself. Practice makes perfect. Let's look into logical operators. Understanding these will be very useful when we get to control structures. There are the following logical operators: or, and not. OR operator traditionally returns a value that converts to true. Let me show you exactly what I mean. Let's declare a few variables. Let A equals false. Let B equal true. And let C equal false again. And I'm going to alert a following expression: A or B or C. I recommend that you stop a video here and think about what the result of this operation is going to be. Done? Awesome. Let's see what it is. It is true. And indeed, it should be true. I already mentioned that OR operator traditionally returns a value that converts to true. It will return the first value that converts to true. So what is going to happen in this situation here? It will look into each operand one by one. Is A true? No. So I'm not going to return it. Is B true? Yes. Okay, return. And it will not even reach C. Let's look into an AND operator. I'm going to change this to an AND. Let's see what the result is going to be. It is false. And indeed it should be false since AND will return the last truthy value or the first falsy one. AND is trying to make sure that all operands it is applied to are truthy. So what is going to happen here? It will reach A and it will ask, is A true? No. Do not continue the execution after it and just return it. It is false. However, if I were to change all of these to be truthy, let's refresh. It is true. In this case, it will return the last value, C. And indeed, this is how it should work. If I were to substitute C with something else, not the Boolean type, but even a string, string that has something in it will convert to a Boolean true, and this should be the return value of this operation. Let's save and refresh. String here. Perfect. This is an expected behavior of this operator in JavaScript. Last but not least is the not operator. Not operator is very simple to understand. All it does, it just flips the switch of a Boolean statement. If I were to say alert not A is true and not A would be false. So let's refresh and see. It is false. Simple stuff. If something in this lesson didn't quite make sense, don't worry. When we get to conditional control structures, it will get much better. And I also highly encourage you to start exploring documentation. MDN Network would be a great place. Just Google JavaScript operators MDN and explore. Otherwise, I'm really excited to get into control structures, so let's keep going.